if you came up to me on the street and you're like, Anthony, what do I need to do to become a millionaire in 2025? I'm starting off, I'm dirt poor, I got no skills, I got nothing. What do I got to do to make $1 million in the next year? Well, my friend, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do. But underlying what I'm going to share with you is a simple, singular concept that if you take this and you run with it, I promise you will make a ton of money. I don't know if you'll make $1 million. Let's just use that as like a benchmark towards which we're targeting, but who cares if it's $1 million, it's $100,000. I know when I was first starting off, like $1 million was so far off into the future. I was $80,000 in debt. I didn't care about that. I wasn't trying to get rich. I was just trying to be not poor. So like I was psyched to make my first $10,000, like legitimately more psyched to make my first 10,000 than I was my first million. So, but here's what you need to do. I'm going to give you the game plan, but then I'm going to share with you the singular idea that's maybe the most important of all. First is you need to have a skill that you can translate into a value you deliver to somebody else in exchange for money. The more valuable the skill that you have, the more money that you can get in exchange for activity. That's a business in a nutshell, right? You have a skill that you transform into a service or into a product or whatever. Now, there's all sorts of skills that you could develop, and I've done videos on what are the most valuable ones, including things like communication and sales, storytelling, design, right? Finance. Those are all the core skills that you're going to want to go learn how to do. But underlying this then is the single concept. This is the one that I really want you to understand, is that in the world of business, I think what most people do not fully comprehend is that you can make all the money in the world, all the money that you ever wanted, if you just ask more people to buy your thing. It's really just a numbers game. And I understand that that's like kind of hard to understand initially, but it's true. Get good enough at a skill, develop a service that you can deliver a result with, and then just go ask people, a ton of people, if they want your product or service. And there's always going to be a subset, a small percentage of people that say yes. And so it's really just a matter of talking to more people. For instance, if you talk to 100 people, there's probably going to be at least 3 people who just buy the thing. Right? But that's a 3% success rate. Most people, they go 3%. I have to talk to 100 people and only 3 are actually going to buy the thing. That feels like a complete waste of time. Well, maybe. But if you extrapolate this out and you go from 100 people to 1,000 people to 1,000,000 people, you start to make some pretty legit good money. And this is the concept that I used at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, because what we did was window washing, and we just went and knocked on doors all day long, knocking until we got people that were interested in having the windows washed. From there, whenever we'd get, that one person out of 100 to say yes, we would then get them on a recurring plan. So we come back in 6 months and wash their windows again. And we turn that into a referral so that the next door we would knock on is their best friend Jim's house. Hey, Jim, I just washed Rudy's house. He said to come over here. He said, you're great. You got dirty windows and you need a better view. I'm here to help, right? So we turn 100 doors into 3 customers. Those 3 customers, we turn into at least a recurring customer. Then we turn that into 2 or 3 customers based off of referrals. And then those customers give us referrals, right? And so now you start to network out. But it started with knocking on more doors. Now, here's the transition I want you to make at some point, is in the beginning, we started by just knocking on doors of single family homes. And, we didn't really have a demographic we were targeting. We just went and said, these people have windows, they need them washed, and so we will knock on their doors. Well, after a little bit, what we started to realize is that not all customers, not all doors are created equal, because that dilapidated shanty, the single story little rambler with only a first floor, like that's not going to pay us very well. And it's probably not very likely that the customer is going to want their windows washed anyway. They might not be in a financial position to do that. Whereas the nicer houses, people who had money that was 4 stories tall and they lived in a nicer neighborhood where appearances matter, maybe they have more disposable income to invest in this thing, those doors were more likely to open for us. So we started targeting better doors as we started to realize where our customers were hiding. Then we made another transition. At a certain point, we started to realize, what's better than knocking on one door and getting one customer is to knock on one door and get one massive customer. For instance, a couple months ago, we were having issues at my property management company. So we manage 650 units of apartment buildings throughout the Twin Cities. We were having a problem with our cleaning service. They weren't doing a good job. And so we started looking for a new cleaning company to come in and clean our buildings. Well, if somebody had knocked on our door that day that I let go of the previous cleaning company, if somebody knocked on the door and is like, "Hey, I'm Mitch. I have a cleaning company. We wash apartment buildings all throughout the Twin Cities. We're the best in the world, and I can do this at a rate that nobody else can match." If he had shown up at that moment with his sales pitch, he could have landed a six-figure cleaning contract on the spot, right? The only difference was the door he would have been knocking on, right? And so knocking on that like crappy single family home, knocking on the mansion, knocking on the door of the business who potentially has hundreds of buildings that they can give you, right? You're constantly thinking, how do I make my offer known to more people, more better people, better, bigger people? And you keep doing that at each level, you will scale, you will grow. That will get you to $1 million really quickly. Now, there are many ways that this can manifest. It's not just about knocking on doors. It could be cold calling. It could be sliding into people's DMs, right? It could be sending emails. It could be cold mail, right? You think about direct mail response campaigns. A lot of times, like this was how people made tons of money back in like the late 20th century. You know, people like Frank Kern and I'm blanking now about who the other direct mail guys were. Anyway, apologies to the OGs. But what they would do is they'd send out hundreds of thousands of letters to complete strangers. People would check their mailbox and they'd get this letter that says, "I have this product, this service. Would you like it?" They'd send out hundreds of thousands of these, and maybe like 0.01% would respond. But that 0.01% really starts to compound when you send out millions of those letters, and they would make a ton of money as a result. So you just have to figure out, how do I get in front of more people and make the offer? Even if it's a crappy offer, even if you're not a great salesperson, there will always be a subset of people that will buy the product. So just go knock on more doors. And here's the beautiful thing that happens as a result of just knocking on more doors. By the time you knock on 1,000 doors, you're not going to suck at knocking on doors anymore. You're going to be better than you were. And so in the beginning, maybe you only get 1% of people to say yes. By the end, you might get 3%. After you've knocked on 10,000 doors, it's probably like 6%. So you're still churning, you're still getting the customer base, but you're getting better for the work that you're putting in, and you're getting more out of it as a result. So that is the secret. That is the plan. That is what I would do in 2025 if I wanted to become a millionaire. Take it, run with it. Let me know in 2026 how it went.